Hey guys, Anthony here. It is Monday, November 1st already, guys. The year is flying by. I cannot believe it's November already. But at any rate, today's video, I want to go over and review, being that I've been on the topic of water procurement with the recent water diversion system that I put on my house here, the ability to collect rainwater. I was rereading this book, just took it out and was rereading this book by Selco Begovic. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that I've done many videos in the years or over the years on Selco. He survived the Balkan Wars of the 90s for over 1 year. His courses or his writings are mostly associated with his original title, which is called 1 Year in Hell, where he shared all of his experiences during the SHTF that he was under in his situation in the Balkans during that time period. And so this book that he has, and he has other courses and things that you could do. If you simply search his name, you could find a lot of information about him. And he still, to this day, is writing articles. I get his emails, and I'll do more updates on what he experienced and wrote about, because it has a lot to do with what we are going through now and what we may be going through here in the USA as a nation, or even different cities or states in the country might experience things a little differently than others. So you have to be ready for a multitude of things. And so while we were on the subject of water, in his chapter here, I'm going to skim over it and go over some high points of it and make some comments. It's entitled "The Dirty Truth About Water and Sanitation When SHTF." So one of the things he mentions here in the beginning of the chapter is that when their SHTF went off or happened, it took everybody by surprise. So not everybody had water or was procuring water or looking for ways to store water. So people were caught by surprise because they relied on the tap, which most of us do today. Most people do in the country here. They walk to the tap. They know it's going to go on. They turn their shower on at night. They know the hot water is going to come out, or that water is going to come out. They fill up their tubs, and they don't think twice about it. They flush their toilet. They don't think twice about where the waste is going. And so, being that it took them by surprise when it first happened, they were unprepared. And they said the first thing they did was they went around asking for tap water. Hey, is your tap working? Is your water still running? If it is, let me fill up a jug or a barrel or whatever, a container, because they, in their minds at that time, thought the services were going to be coming back online. Then when they saw that services were not coming back, they looked at other options like collecting water from rooftops, and then it resorted to direct drinking water directly out of the river. So, and then number 4, to drink water when you even knew it was dirty. So they drank water even knowing that it was dirty, because the thirst that they had to quench and that ability that your body can't go, more than 3 days without water kicks in. And so it was a matter of desperation and low skill levels, he says, at that point. So when they did conclude that running water wasn't going to come back, they did a system similar to what I did. I mean, it was rudimentary. Again, they would cut a leader pipe off of a gutter system, reroute it into whatever they had to collect it in when it rained out. And that was their source of collecting water, which then they were able to process or drink it directly. One of the things he mentions that was a problem, that no one in his time period there had the foresight, was there wasn't enough collection containers. So they had this ability to harness or divert a gutter, but they didn't have enough containers. They didn't have enough garbage cans, 5-gallon pails, maybe those things you blow up and you put in your tub and they hold 100 gallons of water, the water bags. survival bags. So thinking ahead now and seeing what they went through, I'm going to think that I need to have barrels or collection devices in stock on hand in my preps in order to, if I'm resorting to filling up from a rainstorm, I could fill up a number of containers and then worry about either boiling it or filtering it from there. So that was a big thing. So there are two main ways of making water drinkable at that time were boiling and filtering. And the filtering was more rudimentary type, where you put different media types like pebbles, sand, charcoal, and you run the water through it and it comes through gravity, like a sand biofilter or a gravity type filtration that gets it'll get a lot of things out of the water to make it safer to drink. So I just did a video yesterday on a Lifesaver bottle, this one in particular, and this little attachment that goes with it that goes in a water source, and you could pump the water right out. You could even pump it into this clean canteen, the Nalgene bottle, and get water. This will do 500 gallons of water. How important do you think this would have been to Selco in that time, having this for his group or his family that he was with, that can produce 500 gallons of clean drinking water without cryptosporidium, giardia, or viruses in it from the river or something they collected off of a dirty roof or whatever to make it safe to drink? It would have been worth its weight in gold. And so that's why I stressed that now is the time. $120 that you spend on something like that, or the $300 it costs for the jerry can, the larger version that does 6,000 gallons of water. What is that worth to you in a grid down situation where drinking, hygiene, sanitation becomes primary importance? So think about that. So drinking or getting water from the rivers that were polluted with possibly dead bodies upstream, people that died, other pollutions that were in the water caused people to get sick, he goes on to say here many times. And so that happened. So also he talks about keeping yourself clean. So obviously they didn't have running water, so showers and baths were out of the question. So simple things like he talks about here in this chapter, taking a napkin from an MRE and dipping it in some water and giving yourself like a sponge bath and then saying jokingly that you just took a shower. That's just wiping yourself down. He said other people during a heavy rainstorm would go out into their yard, take their clothes off and just stand under the water and try to rinse off that way. In another chapter, not in this chapter, but another chapter of the book, he mentions that they used a form of liquor, like I think they called it rakia back in where he is. It's like a form of a wine, or maybe can be considered like a clear wine or like a vodka would be here to us. And so that's alcohol based. And so they cleaned, a lot of times they had to clean their genitals, their toes, their fingers, their hands with that to kill germs and prevent infections from getting into cuts and sores and hangnails and things that were developing on your feet. If you're not washing enough, things are going to develop that can lead to bacteria settling in. So he goes on to say here that everyone was sick at least once, many multiple times, from drinking bad water or eating food contaminated with bad water. The result was diarrhea, vomiting, and exhaustion. So picture you're already at your wit's end. You're already running low on energy. You're already kind of sick from not eating enough, not drinking right, not proper hygiene. And then on top of that, you get some type of waterborne disease that can more than likely kill you. And that likely or does kill thousands, maybe millions around the world every year that don't have access to clean drinking water. So hygiene became a real bad problem for them. Waste disposal was an issue for them. Many people would just dig a hole and put it there, or burn it, or just throw their garbage in the yard far away from the house. Again, so that could all result in what? Rats and mice and bugs and things coming into your camp or into your place where you're living. And so he says the city was suffocating in garbage and disease was inevitable. When people did get sick, like in your group or family, they had to be quarantined. Does that sound familiar? They had to be isolated because they didn't want to spread anything to any other members of the group. And very often that person would have not been given their daily rations, just enough water to get through the sickness. They wanted them to get through the sickness. And so natural remedies like certain types of natural teas became important. If somebody knew how to forage for some wild edibles where they could make a tea, like a pine needle tea or something like that, they did that. And then a luxury was having access or getting medicines to treat the actual illness, which was a premium or which was not always available, especially towards the end of the 1 year. He was in hell or without in SHTF. So in ending this, he said their latrine, they had an area through their backyard or through their residence was access to like a field that was sheltered from all different sides. You really couldn't see it. The enemy or other people couldn't see it. So they actually dug a latrine with like offshoot things so the waste can kind of go downhill and filter out. And they covered it with wood. And there they had a safe place, or a fairly safe place, to do their business and to keep it away from the house, because the toilets weren't working, the toilets weren't flushing, and a safe area was needed. So they were fortunate enough to have that. But in closing, people do not understand when the water goes off or stops running, the pumping systems in your city, your town stop pumping waste out. Therefore, your toilet's not going to flush normally, or even when you pour water into it, if you can get water to pour into it, it's not going to flush. The systems are gravity fed a lot of times. You need electricity for the pumping stations to pump the waste out to the treatment plants. So your toilet in the house will probably have to be taped shut, or you're going to get rats and bugs and waste coming up through it. And so same thing with the sinks, the traps. We'll get roaches and bugs and rodents coming up through the traps. So you've got to restructure and recalculate how you're going to do everything. So now is the time to do it, and not for when SHTF happens. When SHTF happens, if you wake up and the tap doesn't work, you don't have any filters, you don't have containers full of water, you got a water bottle in the refrigerator and a quart jar that you keep in the refrigerator, that's not going to cut it. And then you got to be able to try to figure out now how to collect water, what you're going to put it in, how you're going to filter it, how you're going to boil it. You don't have enough matches, you don't have containers to boil it, you don't have an outdoor stove, you don't have, then it sets off a chain reaction. And what I'm saying is you want to be prepared now for water, procurement, how to make it safe to drink, how to collect it and store it, and then how to keep and use basic hygiene to keep yourself from getting sick, an infection, something wrong with your hands, or dirt get into your skin or into cuts that could lead to sepsis, that could lead to death. Bad hygiene can and will lead to death in an SHTF, especially if it's a prolonged period and you can't get water to clean yourself, let alone to drink and to stay alive. Safe water, that is, and you get sick and you're already sickly to begin with, or have issues already with you, things wrong medically, going into SHTF, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer. So take the time today to take heed of this instruction from Selco, of his experience, because somebody that experienced it. I haven't experienced a year without water. I've experienced like a week without water in Florida when we had a hurricane, but not a year. So I don't know, how I would react a year or more without water. But I do know this, that I have in place the knowledge that I've learned and got from other people as well to make it easier or less hard to less chance of suffering the consequences. So I've put water back. I have ways to collect. I have ways to purify and filter. I have containers and getting more. So I'm putting together a series of things. I have hygiene products. I have medical products. Is there ever enough? No, but put them into place now. So take heed of this, the dirty truth about water and sanitation when there's SHTF, and put a plan into place today and move forward with it, even if it's one little chip at a time, because now is the time. Comments and questions, let me know what you think. If you've experienced this or suffered through something like this in an SHTF where there was no water, let us know. Take care and stay ready. Anthony, signing off.